happens after Donald Trump wins? What's next for America?
Former President Donald Trump posting, then removing, a video to his social media site Truth Social, referring to the creation of a unified Reich if he wins a second term. The 30-second video shared Monday featured hypothetical headlines styled as World War I era newspaper clippings.
The American dream is back, and the best is yet to come.
The text Unified Reich, a term often associated with Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler, appears under one headline that reads, "What's next for America?" And again at the end of the video under the text, MAGA.
Make America great again.
Trump warning moments ago, and I quote him, everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran, as Iran is warning that a ninth wave of attacks against Israel is now underway and will continue until dawn. This is now the fifth night of attacks between the two countries. And just moments ago, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth posting on social media, and I quote, he said, "I directed the deployment of additional capabilities to the Middle East region." So what does that mean? Now we know that the U.S. Navy Nimitz carrier strike group is already heading towards the Middle East right now, and more U.S. naval assets capable of defending against ballistic missiles are expected to be moving into the Eastern Mediterranean, closer to Israel in these next coming days. The latest Iranian attacks coming after the IDF released these new images of Israel destroying what it says are two Iranian fighter jets. And earlier today, an unbelievable moment unfolded live on Iranian state television. Let me show it to you.
فضای غبارآلوده استادیوم
$10 million people in Tehran were told to evacuate, 17 million in the greater Tehran area. Where do people go? Do they have a place to go? How do they get gas? The airports have been bombed. The roads are bombed. They bomb at night when people can leave. My family are trying to evacuate. I know that they are waiting for the sun to go down because they're older.
So imagine if Vladimir Putin posted online saying that everyone in D.C., Washington, D.C. should evacuate immediately because America didn't do what I wanted them to do, didn't sign what I wanted them to sign. That is what Donald Trump has just done. He said that everyone in Tehran should evacuate immediately. Most of them will never even know about this post that he made, okay? Like, they're not keeping up with his posts all the time. And what are the elderly, sick, children, the animals? Like, do you think that the whole city, the capital of, like, the capital, what are they supposed to do? It's not some, like, random desert. It is a metropolitan city packed with millions of people.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah,
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's, it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay,
actually,
I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the
I'm
one
not saying that.
Who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad.
You don't believe they're trying to murder Trump?
Yes, I do.
A brief explanation for people who may not understand what's going on with Iran and Israel and why it's such a big deal. Iran is run by the Islamic regime which took over Iran in the 70s. They've spent all of those decades since murdering and oppressing their own people. The Iranian people themselves have been trying to overthrow the regime since they took over. Okay, so the regime uses terror proxies throughout the Middle East to fight their wars for them. It's the Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Shiite groups in Iraq and Syria, and Hamas and the PIJ in Palestine. Iran has enough nuclear energy to create massive nuclear weapons. They may, in fact, even have them made already. They're lying to the whole world, and they've been violating all of their nuclear deals and lying about what they do and do not have forever.
I don't know. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
I want to give you guys a little history lesson. I hope you're ready for this, all right? In 1953, right, the Iranians were a top-tier Middle Eastern country. I mean, Persia was the shit. It was modern, they had oil, and they were really getting things going. But they had a colonial problem. The British were controlling all of the oil supplies, and the country wasn't seeing any of it. So, lo and behold, a socialist is on the rise. His name is Mohammad Mossadegh. Mohammad Mossadegh has a popular revolt, a popular revolution. He's elected into office. They kick out the British Petroleum and they nationalize the oil. Guess what? There's a CIA coup immediately after this, and the Shah is installed, a U.S. puppet dictator. He's going to be in charge for a long time until the corruption gets so deep there's a fundamentalist revolution.
Remember how we mentioned that before the Iranian Revolution in 1979, Iran was actually a pretty peaceful and liberal place that attracted Westerners, women could dress how they pleased, and how after the revolution, Iran descended into complete darkness, ruled under Islamic law? Well, guess who instigated that revolution? Oh, would you look at that? It was the US. See, back then, the Middle East was rather peaceful. It still had its problems, but it definitely wasn't as chaotic and war-torn as it is today. That was until the US got involved. In 1953, the CIA got the green light for Operation Ajax. Their mission? Get the Iranian Prime Minister Mossadegh out of power, dead or alive. So they launched a coup, but not just any coup. This was the very first time in history the CIA decided to overthrow a democratically elected government. And it worked.
The Ayatollah Khomeini. So Khomeini had been in France, but the French didn't really want him anymore, and he goes to Iraq. Iraq, because Saddam Hussein is basically one of our allies in the region, although it's kind of a weird relationship. But that means that we effectively have control of the Ayatollah Khomeini. Now, we had seen how fundamentalist Muslims could be advantageous to us in our foreign policy pursuits. For example, we were funding fundamentalist Muslims in Egypt because we realized that if we funded the Muslim Brotherhood, it destabilized the socialist government that we hated. And so this is a great tactic for us. So the way everybody who was in the intelligence field saw the Ayatollah Khomeini being in Iraq was this was a person you could use if you needed to in Iran. So he's sort of like a reserve emergency tool.
Well, hello guys, David Vose here. Man, oh man, it's a beautiful day. This here is the drive going into Zuni Pueblo here in New Mexico. It's 20 miles from where I live. Isn't it beautiful, guys? Coming into Zuni Pueblo. But if you watch that series of clips that I just showed you, you will get the distinct impression that we have been lied to. I'm going to tell you something. You heard it here first. You're probably going to hear it here last. And you probably never hear it again. So maybe you should listen. The Ayatollah Khomeini or Khomeini or whatever Mani he is probably Jewish. For those of you who cannot spell, he is an Israeli agent. The same is true for the guy that runs the Gaza or the Hamas or whatever it is over there. These are agents. And where you see people saying the United States took over countries or our CIA, yes, the CIA did a lot of this. They're agents. But they're agents for the Israeli government. And since after 1948, once they became a world power, all the billionaires who run the world, who are of this particular persuasion, they began to back the final solution here, which is a one world government ruled by their interests, and they use this Middle East country over there in the middle of all these other countries, kind of nestled in there, to get like on the Mediterranean, where they can bring their ships up to the coast and unload weapons and, you know, spy people and secrets and whatever they're doing. And from 1948 on, they started the propaganda. Yeah, the propaganda. And they started with the Roswell experience and all the UFOs. Back in the day, I don't know if some of you remember, maybe in the 60s, 70s, some of you old enough, we used to talk about the UFOs and the flying saucers. We didn't say UFOs then, we said flying saucers. They were circles, discs, and they were not, technology. They were Project Paperclip. They probably have a base in the Antarctic and maybe on the moon. Yeah, the moon. I thought you said we didn't go to the moon, Dave. Well, maybe we did, but they're going to show you what the reality is here. It may very well just be a couple of 100 miles up in the sky. We don't know how far away this thing is. There's definition. You can see the moon with your eyes from Earth. All the craters and everything. It's not very far. So they can probably fly an airplane up there. And they do probably have a base up there. And I do believe that is an inhabitable planet. And there are some tall whites that live there. It may very well be that there is a group of individuals that even on the moon have been taken over by some evil forces. They call them the tall whites or the Nordics, or the ones that have chosen the motherland and the fatherland, the Aryan race, which is a propaganda idea, because Aryan just means Orion, which is the human race. But they are controlled by, and they have to tell you everything. So this is why they introduce the aliens with little squinty eyes or the big heads or whatever they are. The big black eyes with the big bulb heads and the narrow little chin that are green men, little grays or green, like reptilians. And David Icke comes out with all these book deals talking about reptilians. They control the world. Well, I thought it was the tall whites, right? The white brotherhood that control the... You say, wait a minute, I like New Age. They're the ones that talk about the master race of the Shambhala white brotherhood. No, they don't. You see, Helena Blavatsky introduced us to these amazing truths in her book, The Secret Doctrine, and so forth. Nobody ever reads those books anymore. You don't hear anybody talking about them, so nobody's enthused to run out and get that, because they don't want you to understand any of that facts and figures and truth. But it stirred the world into a major revolution, and New Agers and auras and hippies and all this twin flames and incense and these out-of-body experiences and everything was beautiful. Reincarnation, introducing Hinduism and reincarnation into our teachings, which is all true. They couldn't stop that information that came out, the synchronization of all religions. So what they did was they started manipulating it. They put in Alice Bailey and the Germans that over there in Germany that were running the occult. They brought Steiner in to kind of deflect into some other crazy, weird ideas. Everybody's all interested in, oh, Steiner. But you don't read Helena Blavatsky? You don't read Joseph Smith? Oh, yeah, because Brigham Young murdered him and made him look like he was a polygamist and an evil man. And so you don't know anything about these prophets that came and taught the world. So they started their propaganda, Alice Bailey, and they started talking about all this fluff and the twin flames and the auras and all of that, which they didn't teach it correctly. They never got to the deeper part. They never got to enlightenment. They started talking about nirvana, like you could sit in a corner and go, This is why this whole pineal gland is so dangerous, because you don't get salvation by either decalcifying your pineal gland or sitting in a corner going, or anything like that. None of that is in the Bhagavad Gita or any of the Hinduism, Vedas, the Gitas or the Upanishads or Taoism or Zoroastrianism or any of the ancient teachings. It is a religion that was made up in the 1960s called yoga. Yoga is not a religion. Sitting right, breathing right, athleticism, stretching, exercise has nothing to do with salvation. Beautiful sounds uttered and intoned perfectly, it's not enough. And beautiful music is great. We're supposed to enter into his gates through praise and thanksgiving, yes, and singing songs. And Peter did it, and the prison bars came open and they walked out free. Yes, music is a way to heighten your consciousness, but it's, after all, heightening your consciousness that does the trick. The music is a tool. Incense is a tool, but it's a small, minor tool. One needs truth to be set free, because it is the truth that will set you free. And without knowledge, gnosis, no one will see the Lord. And without faith, one will not get virtue. And without virtue, one will not attain unto the fruits of the Spirit, like self-control and kindness and goodness and gentleness. And these are things that if you following after the Spirit, you'll attain. And it takes practice. We practice our faith. And we grow from grace unto grace. But all the propaganda is just fluff. So modern New Ageism, nothing wrong with the freedom of the hippie movement and the love and all of the incense. Oh, that's wonderful. Eating right and vegetarianism. But it's not going to really get you through unless you know the deeper truths and you are not, easily swayed from one wind of doctrine to another, and you don't know what salvation really is to attain unto a higher consciousness. So they talk about nirvana, and like you could just sit in a corner and go, and get nirvana. But what's not told to you is that the word nirvana is a Hindu word. It's like Brahma, the day of Brahma is 1 billion years. Now, these are ages that must continue on, cycles. Talk about cataclysm, or down cycles, and up cycles, and all of these cycles that in Greek we call not yugas like they do in Hindu, but ages. And so our Bible talks about this. A day in the Lord is like 1,000 years. Well, that's a quote from the Bhagavad Gita, which is a day unto Brahma. So these ages are all based on this 360 degrees and all this stuff. I don't want to get all that today. But nirvana is 1.5 trillion years. It is the great plan, the entire age of the ages. And the Bible uses the term age of the ages, yuga of the yugas. And if you look up yuga and find out what the yuga of the yugas is, it's the entire age or cycle of all the yugas or ages based on 360. So it's a long, long time. We're advancing to become awake and to achieve salvation. Now, in a smaller context, we're just talking about our exaltation, and we want to get to the place where we achieve, as a human race, immortality. We will advance after that. Many ages, yes. Because there are 4 things that happen before we get immortality. We go from the fish to the birds to the mammals, the men. 4 stages. It's symbolic. It has to do with earthly things. And then in the resurrection unto eternal life, there are 3 gradations. The sun and the moon and the stars. But each star differs in star and glory. Because we're going to attain unto all these various glories for an endless progression, of eternal progression. So all of this here is in the Bible. But there is a lot of hype and propaganda. And I just threw that in because I want you to understand how the propaganda and what it's designed to do. Amongst all of that, fluff and hype, keeping you away from the actual true teachings and the actual self-sacrificing and love. They don't want to talk about being materialistic and getting involved in politics. There's all these New Agers involved in politics. You don't want to be involved in politics, and here's why. Because it is a scam. It is the system. You got to get out of the system. That's how you attain salvation. Becoming free from the bondage of law and guilt. Remove the guilt, the shame. That's it. Jesus said, forgive one another, love yourself, and love your neighbor as yourself. So that's the true teaching. Love one another, give everyone a cup of water. Deity is in all the world, in all, through all, and above all. He's in every little branch of a tree, and all the beetles and the birds, and the little sparrow, and everything you see the divine. And you understand the purpose, which is love and not hate. So along with all that propaganda that they have been throwing at us, starting religions up like Jehovah's Witnesses and modern Mormons and Adventists, going back to the law and sacred roots and going back to Israel's all of everything and we're their slaves. We've got to obey the Israeli government, the New World Order. And Jehovah's Witnesses created the New World Bible, and the New World Order they're looking forward to. And the black mass that everybody carries out where they don't believe they're worthy of salvation. They're just little slaves to the henchmen over there running the world. But besides all of that, from 1948 on, Project Paperclip and, Aleister Crowley and Jack Parsons, who created the space agencies, and Werner von Braun, who was over the German space agencies, and then was sort of brought over here and helped to create the moon landings and all this fake stuff that they were doing, probably setting up bases on the moon and Antarctica and wherever they were, whatever they were doing. And in Werner von Braun's novel, they all do it. L. Ron Hubbard was a disciple of Aleister Crowley too. And these guys were all disciples of Albert Pike and Brigham Young. And before that, John Dee and Edward Kelly, who became the dark occultists, the liars, the Illuminati, that took over Britain and the Queen and the King of England. And with their millions and billions of dollars, they took over the Parliament and started putting in laws and family planning and bringing people across the border and changing the culture and ethnicities of the peoples of the world and arranging borders and rebel rousing in places like Argentina and Brazil and South America, and taking down Venezuela, and then taking the children and raping the women and making drugs, and the borders are all messed up, and we're buying and selling human souls. Yes, the Bible says. And this was all being done by the mad, evil, wicked dictators of the Illuminati, who infiltrated the descendants of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene from Marseille, France, or the Knights of St. John. They created and infiltrated these Templars and created the Temple Lot Church and organization called the Bar Association in England, in London. And through this, they run all the political things, usually political leaders are attorneys and lawyers. They're Cohens or Levies or Levitt or Levi's or Anton LaVey that run the Satanic Church. They set up the Levite, priests set up the Satanic Church because they couldn't worship Yahweh the way that it actually says to worship him in the Old Testament, sacrificing animals and even humans, and genociding and doing all these evil things and slavery. So they set up the satanic covens in all of America and all of the world. Now they take people's children, they sell them. The satanic covens, and I don't know why anybody doesn't know this, but things like social services and welfare programs and other, it's just like this other program, which we'll show you a clip about Tim Waltz, who's one of these individuals, like the Son of Sam in New York, or the evil Mormon mass serial killer Ted Bundy. Because the Mormons are a secret society that runs the western part of the United States, and there are other secret societies that run different parts of the world, but it's all under the umbrella of the Illuminati. And the Mormons are very powerful. They're a secret society because they run a lot of the underground UFO technologies, the FBI, and things like this. Jehovah's Witnesses are used on a lower level for management, business. That's why you got to wear a tie and a suit and learn how to speak and carry a paper with you and write down everything like a journal. They're businessmen. They're trained not to lie or to steal because they run all the companies. And so it's a mass propaganda programs. Tucker Carlson's dad was head of the propaganda and PBS here in America, and Tucker Carlson's doing a very good job. And so Alex Jones is also a CIA agent. He's admitted that, and the guy that runs him and other international radio programs, nationally syndicated radio programs like Alex Jones, that are run by this company, they will admit, you can look it up, they were forced to admit that they're a CIA-run institution as propaganda. Notice that the radio was all run by one conglomeration. The Rush Limbaughs, the Sean Hannitys, they're propagandists. They're working for the CIA. They're saying what they're told. They're made to be rich. And then you got the other side that runs a lot of Hollywood and the liberal side. And they're all working together. This is why Phil Donahue would come along at 3 o'clock in the evening. You indoctrinate the wives that were home during those years in the 70s. They weren't all working. And they could sort of get the wives to sit around and start thinking about aborting their children and all these crazy, evil, wicked things and liberation of the women, and they shouldn't have to be married anymore or raise their own children and send them to daycare and all of this. And so Phil Donahue brought Rush Limbaugh on his show, and they would debate all this weird stuff like whether or not you should murder your baby or whether or not we should all be gay and send our children to a hospital to get changed, in gender or whatever. So all of this has been propaganda. But all the while, there was the political front, the CIA, the FBI, the KGB, the Israeli intelligence, and British intelligence. Aleister Crowley was a triple agent. Now, how could you be a triple agent working for the Germans, the British, and the Americans? Because they're all working for the same BlackRock, Round Table, Illuminati, Bavarian Illuminati, or Bohemian Grove, or the Bilderbergers, or whoever or whatever. All these organizations running the world by the billionaires running the world, making the decisions, and financing all of the movements and the riots and the evil and the propaganda in the universities, the children, the little weak minds, teaching them all this insanity about. Just think about the world. You ever wonder, like, in communist countries, everybody gets like $400 a month or I don't know, maybe they raised it $600 a month now, because inflation. But it was like in the days of Gorbachev, I think it was something like 350 rubles is all everyone got. Well, wait a minute. So did they have to file taxes? Did they have to take money out of that 300? And how do you live on 350 rubles? Well, that was the money they got to spend. But everything else was provided for you. The housing, the food, your job. You don't get a check from your job and negotiate your wage. Everybody was assigned a job. And you're assigned a home. And you're given food stamps. And you're given the stipend for your apartment or whatever. And everything's nationalized. The electric company, the water, and everything. So your 350 rubles is just what you lived on for buying gas for your car, going on a trip, or going to the store and buying clothes or whatever. That was your money to get the everyday supplies like soaps and beauty products and stuff like this. But in communist countries, it's all welfare, basically. The state runs and owns everything and tells you where to work and what to do. This is now fully in place here in America. You see, they sent everybody home. It's all unionized and everything's controlled. You get welfare. They pay for your housing. Most everybody goes to the government to get a check. That's why they wanted everybody to be mentally ill, so they could put you on drugs like a straitjacket, a mental lobotomy, and you just drool and just do whatever they say and go get your check and live in government housing, HUD, and get your welfare. And this is exactly communism. If you don't think that communism is or social, whatever you want to call it, fascism, I don't know. It's just the government runs everything. Law and order, control, which will finally be put into full effect when they get AI everywhere. Cameras and judges and you give up your rights when you get your driver's license, basically, right? Or your birth certificate. But you want those benefits, though. So communism is installed. Now, if you don't believe that, just take a look at who we revere here in America. Einstein, what's that? The belief that we're in this little speck of dust and there's an infinite vastness of nothing all around us and aliens are coming and all this insanity and relativity. Nothing's for sure. Nothing is, it's rationalism. It's not empirical data. And this was started at the Wilhelm Institute in Germany in World War I. Einstein was the director of the Wilhelm Institute. And there were other people that came along like, Marxism. You say, yeah, but we're not Marxists here. We don't like communists. Well, we're capitalists. What's that? Well, we follow Freud, the doctors, the pharmaceutical druggists, the psychiatrists. It's Freud and Jung, Carl Jung, and Hegel, the Hegelian dialectic, Nietzsche, which is deity is dead, science, aliens, and in that mix is Darwin. There is no deity. It's atheism. This is communism, all the same players, the same Illuminati group, the same Bavarians that invented all these heroes that get a little picture that you put on the wall at every university and down the hall of every classroom and grammar school. We revere and worship these people. And so, yes, it is some form of socialism, communism, capitalism in every part of the world, which is the billionaires run everything, an oligarchy, an atheismarchy, and a technocratic organization that is now running America with Hollywood and Silicon Valley and BlackRock and all of this. So in this propaganda, they want you to see all the wars that they create and instigate and that they control, like all the chess pieces. They control Iran. Iran may or may not have nuclear weapons. It doesn't matter. If they do, we control them. Little rocket man sending up his little rockets to scare you. Little red, white, and blue flag, And And don't worry if you're not sure whether the Soviets or the Chinese or the Americans run that guy. It's all three of us use the little rocket man to keep everybody scared. We have to have big armies and tax our people so we can make more missiles and scare everybody with ideas of nuclear fallout and nuclear war and, you better leave or we're going to blow you up, and give us your money. So right now, what they're going to do to make everybody believe that, oh my goodness, this random war and the world came to an end, and thank goodness for the saviors who came along and made a one world government. They're going to destroy Jerusalem on August the 2nd. And I don't, nobody knows the day and the hour when Jesus comes, but I can guarantee that right around that date, Jerusalem will be destroyed, especially the Dome of the Rock. And they're going to build it back better. Remember what they did there in New York after 9/11, build back better? Or, well, I guess that was Biden that came up with that one. He took the rioters in and destroyed all the cities, and then he built it back better, right? This was their plan. This is their plan. The riots are going to spread to every city, friends. Get out. You don't want to be there. There's going to be pandemics. There's going to be pestilences, and the wars are all orchestrated, and Russia is just sitting back and waiting, right? That's why the Ayatollah Khomeini went to Russia. I guess he's in Russia, and Putin's protecting him. They don't need to protect him. That man is an Israeli agent, a Bavarian Illuminati. It's a farce, just like Hamas. And it's being orchestrated for you guys to be afraid and think it's all grassroots, like Jim Jones. They all supposedly mass murdered themselves because they were so crazy, right? No, it was a CIA plot, experiment, an MK Ultra mind experiment, just like LSD and the peace sign and the hippie movement, and all of it. Alice Bailey, Steiner, and Jehovah's Witnesses, and Mormons in Salt Lake, and the Gothic temples, and the underground city there in Salt Lake, in Thule, where they got all these UFOs and Agent Area or Area 51 and Aleister Crowley and the Satanic Church and the space agencies and Werner von Braun, and I think he's related to Elon Musk because he wrote a book in his novel talking about the Elon that's going to lead you to Mars with a Neuralink. It's not real. It's like the movie Avatar. All fake, all propaganda. They want you to understand that the aliens or the little reptilian greys, little green men, are running the tall whites. So NAZIs are being run by the devil. That's what they're saying. They're telling you the truth. They have to tell you the truth. And Iran is not an independent country. It is a sham. They are doing this on purpose because they have a date. And then they're going to have Iran drop a bomb on Jerusalem. Now, something will probably also happen between July 13th to August 2nd. The last 3 weeks of July, there's going to be a lot of war going on in that Middle East. But by August 2nd, I would suspect that Jerusalem will be completely gone. This is biblical. This is what it was August. They call it the 9th of Av. It's when Jerusalem was destroyed 600 BC, 587. And it was when Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. Same date that the Holocaust and everything. And they do it every time. They have control of this because their deity, the devil, the adversary, the one who accuses you by law, the genocider, the tempter, is the devil. Jesus said, your father is the devil, looking at the Sanhedrin. And the mark of the beast, remember, Yahweh is the beast. Hosea chapter 13, the leopard, the lion, and the bear, who's going to eat you and kill you. And it is the mark of the beast that you put in your hand to your forehead, which is the law of Moses, which might not necessarily be the law of Moses, although there is possibly the Abrahamic covenant that's going around, or the Gesera, Nasera, and, these kinds of things. But basically, all law legislated by any government run by this bar association in London, the Illuminati, the Levites, and the Cohens, is a continuation of the law of Moses based on the precedents of law which started with Moses, codified by Moses in the law code. That's why we talk about the law code today. It's the code and the precedents of Moses. So you can put your hand on the Bible and swear in a court. Anywhere in the world, Russia, China, everywhere, you got black robes slamming down gavels, putting people in jail and prison, using the same standards and the same law. Because everyone who's a lawyer, no matter what country you're in, you get your law degrees from the Bar Association in London. So, friends, I guarantee that what's about to happen has been planned already. Now, let me just show you a little clip here, and then we'll get right back to you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you will be not shocked to learn that the details of who the killer is are all coming together. First off, this is the backseat of the killer's car. He had no kings signs in the back of his car. This no kings rally, as we've covered on the channel, is a far left-wing astroturfed, billionaire-funded rally with a bunch of left-wing groups and organizations. It's an anti-Trump rally, and it is planned all across America. There are hundreds of no kings rallies across the nation today. This individual, this wasn't random. The police officers have stated this was a search of the vehicle. We found the no kings signs, we found a manifesto, and we found the identity of other lawmakers that this individual was going to target. Here's a list of the people who are behind the no kings protests today in the country. You can see just a collective of every Marxist group in the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, it gets worse. Get a load of this. Now the suspect has been identified. Suspect who killed Melissa Hortman this morning has been identified as 57-year-old Vance Bolter. Law enforcement tells Julio Rosas. Bolter was a Tim Walz appointee on one of the governor's boards. What a shock. So this man served as on the board of governors. Here's Tim Walz's signature as a business member of the governor's workforce development. Look at that, Vance Bolter.
Oh, buddy. So Tim Walz was the running mate of Kamala Harris, going to be the vice president. He is all up in this trans movement and doing all these shenanigans and evil, wicked stuff on our children. He's a pedophile, can't say much more. But they've got this state that he lives in sewed up. You can't actually run for anything there if you're a good person or whatever. They don't allow you to get in office. And if you do, and you don't do or vote the way they want, they will murder you. As is shown by the fact that this beautiful woman voted against his crazy legislation the other day, and she was murdered by this guy who's heading up the whole No Kings movement riots, working for Tim Walz. Do you think Tim Walz will go to jail or anything for this? If he does, it will be purely propaganda, kind of like Epstein, who supposedly killed himself, and now he's sipping martinis on the Biden Island. The Epstein Island, which is right next to Biden's Island, where they sniff the little girls, whatever they do. So, probably there's a whole underground tunnel that goes down from the Epstein Island. It goes to the underground city or civilization where they're going to hide out. When the world goes through the cataclysm, they think they're going to survive down there. And the Bible tells us that they will hide in the clefts and the holes of the rock. But they're not going to get away with it, friends. So, it's all orchestrated. The riots, if you think that Trump is not part of this, just a dialectic, two sides. They're playing us by threatening us one side and then threatening us with the other, right? They got to make chaos in order to bring in more martial law, in order to bring more police, more prisons, and build up the military. They're not just doing it in our cities, they're doing it over there in the Middle East. Friends, we're about to go into the one world government, and you're going to beg for Israel to rule the world. Because we can't have Iran rule the world, they got bombs. Well, okay. So you don't want to be on the street because the criminals have guns. So you want protection from the police that lawfully take you to court and stick you in a prison for the rest of your life. Or beat you up, or it's really such a sham, the whole world. But I guarantee it's all being orchestrated on both sides. And if Tim Walz is doing all these evil things, then, and if Trump truly wants to stop him, I think he could have him arrested. They could come up, they know what he's done, there's proof. They're financing the riots. We know that. It's already come out. I came out with a video showing it, and after I came out with that video, there's been all kinds of people come out with videos showing you. Even this video I'm doing here, I just showed you where all these companies, legitimate companies with CEOs and managers and people that are financing it are known. Soros and all these other people, they know who they are. Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all these people are doing things blatantly and out in the open. BlackRock and JD Vance, but what are we going to do? What are we going to stop JD Vance? He's the vice president. You're going to stop Tim Walz? He's the governor, right? These guys are not being elected by the people. They are being selected by the elite. And they have both sides, and they're playing us. And they're going to bring us to ruin. But don't you worry, because Jesus is coming to bring to ruin those who are ruining the earth, it says in Revelation. Chapter 11, verse 18. So, for those of you who think that Jesus is not going to come and stop these guys, and he would never dare bring the judgment, well, think again. If something isn't done, they're going to murder us all. Not just in death, but they're going to try and take your soul. They're luring your children in to mind control, to take their soul, their will, and enslave them for another 20,000 years or whatever they got up their sleeve. If your children are not somehow rescued from the evil that these wicked people are doing upon this earth, with changing their mind about, what is good and what is bad. That's the whole reason we're here, to decide and to learn for ourselves what is good and what is bad. Not to be deceived into accepting, selling our souls to the devil. Signing another contract. These children are going to sign this contract with Satan because they have been lured in by sex and drugs, and they don't have they're gone. Their minds are gone. Under duress, they're being destroyed. You better hope that Jesus Christ comes back and saves us before we all go down the drain. Yes, it is that higher consciousness that will save us. And Jesus and his brethren, because he's the firstborn among many brethren, thank goodness our elders are wise. And they've been around a while, and they're not going to be deceived by this evil cabal. So the 144,000 are going to get victory over the beast in its image. And they're going to be standing on Mount Zion with the Lord. And they're going to tell the world the truth. And that truth, which is light, will dispel the darkness. But if the truth is never told, and our children never get to see the light, if we don't have a constitution and a freedom and the justice for all and the right to speak and the right to think and the right to the resources of the earth and the water and the air and to be free, then we're done. So that's what's going on with that. And I just thought you ought to know. And I want you to understand that this is it. And here's the solution. This is what Jesus has warned us and told us to do. He said this is coming, father against son, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. It's not just going to be Iran against Israel. It's going to be every country against every country. And it's going to be every person against every person. And they're going to hate you if you believe in love and goodness and truth. And you don't like bombing people. And you don't want to participate. Or you don't want to join in their ruckus idolatry and their atheistic pride parade. And you don't want to indulge in the deep things of Satan like all the rest. They won't like you. But I will tell you this, the only way you will survive this is to stand firm and boldly declare the name of Jesus. Because if you're lukewarm, you're going to be spit right out of his mouth. You're not going to get to the new world, to the true kingdom of Christ, by being lukewarm and having one foot in the world and this evil and one foot in, well, maybe I like goodness a little, you know? You better be absolutely certain where you stand. If you're not with Christ, you are against him. If you are for the government and our country independently, just arbitrarily just bombing Iran, of course, like I said, it's all a scam. There's no Iran. It's just the poor people that are suffering. Like the people here in America are going to suffer with these riots that's coming and the pestilences and the wars and the famines that's going to be going on. Yeah, we're going to suffer, but it's all staged by Satan. They're ruining the earth. And Jesus is coming to destroy those who are destroying the earth. But he will do it by love. The message of peace and the message of truth will win. But you are the light of the world, friends. And if you don't stand on the hilltop and shine your light, then the world will not see, and they will be lost. However, I do not fear that outcome, because I am going to stand on my mountain and shine my light, and all those that I love and those that I know, and my best friend, we will be standing together, and our lights will shine. And if that's the only lights that shine, it will be enough to get at least a few others to shine their lights, and then a few others. And that light, friends, is going to be grace. It's going to be truth. It's not going to be fear. Don't be afraid of them. If you are afraid, if you don't boldly proclaim the name of Christ, then the angels can't give your name to the Father. And the angels are going to pass over your house because the blood of the Lamb is not on your doorpost. Friends, it's a symbol. Don't be ridiculous. This is a symbol. We're not going to put blood on our doorpost. What it means is if you are covered by his grace. Yeah, there were legal requirements because you signed a document. You're following, in some sort of just your agreement to their society. Yeah, you signed it with duress, but if you continue to agree to their insanity and participate, then you will be guilty. If you do not participate in the grace and in the love and the forgiveness and openly reject Satan's kingdom, then you're a part of it. You must, as the Bible says in Revelation chapter 18, get out of her, my people, out of Babylon, out of this confusion, if you do not want to share with her in her sins and partake of her plagues. The plagues are coming, friends. Get out of Babylon now. I tell you this, you have a very short time. And I'm David Vose, and I'm going to leave it there. The Lord loves every one of you, and even those who reject him, he loves you. Know that. If you don't have the strength to stand up for the truth, know that the Lord loves you, and he's encouraging you, and he'll help you. You've got to find that strength. If you can't do it, if you just decide you want to sell your soul for a little bit of peace or camaraderie with your comrades or whatever you're doing it for, the pleasure, the money, the power, it will be short-lived. But thank goodness that our Heavenly Father and our Divine Mother and our Lord Jesus Christ loves you all. And He's not like these evil people. He's not going to torture you and manipulate you and abuse you. He's going to reform you. But you will have to wash your robes in the blood of the Lamb to be saved. And I'm afraid to tell you that, unfortunately, if you do not willingly receive the love of the truth, that you might be delivered from this wrath to come, you will partake of her plagues. But through the fire you will be refined. The Lord disciplines those whom He loves. He will not lose a one, not a one, except the son of destruction, which is the carnal flesh, the cocoon, this lower ego that we've got to discard. We've got to be born again, friends. We've got to be a new creature in Christ. We've got to let all things become new. We've got to repent, turn around, change our heart and our minds, and be renewed by His grace and His love. And either you will do that now because you have enough wisdom to understand that it is so important, and you will receive the courage if you'll just decide. The Lord will give you everything else you need. But if you can't make that decision now, friends, you must understand that you will go through a great, great, terrible, terrible judgment. And you will be because there's going to be a resurrection of both the righteous and the unrighteous. If you're unrighteous, that just means that you're going to have to be resurrected unto the resurrection unto judgment, meaning that you will be brought back into a mortal existence, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. Whatever you've done unto others will be done unto you, and you will learn by the things in which you suffer. But your salvation is not going to be readily had. But through it all, whoever you are, every knee shall bow, every tongue will confess, even those who pierced Him. I pray that you all will make the right decision, because I want it to go well with thee. Lot and his daughters got out safely, but that Lot's wife turned around and went back to the city. She couldn't let go, and she became a pillar of salt. Well, that was her judgment, and of course she had to be reincarnated, and perhaps she's learned many lessons since then, but this was a lesson then for us today, like it was in the days of Noah. And yet we were all there in the days of Noah, and many of us perished in the flood. But Jesus came and preached to the spirits in prison, to those who were dead. He gave the gospel, and He preached liberty to those that were bound. And now is the day of our salvation, friends. I hope and pray that you all receive it. Anyway, I'm going to leave it here. We're about an hour. I'm going to get this uploaded. Lord loves you guys. His grace is forever. He loves you more than you can ever imagine. Please, prayerfully, think about all that we've talked about. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Dear brothers and sisters, have a good one.